This is the Stick in the Mud podcast, episode 4. Today, we'll be reviewing the mud Lusternia. Hey everyone, welcome to the Stick in the Mud podcast. I'm your host, Tark. If this is your first time listening, I just want to say thanks. If you're a repeat listener, thanks for tuning in again. The Stick in the Mud podcast is released once a week on Wednesdays, and notes for the show can be found at www.stickinthemudpodcast.com. You can find us on iTunes and Google Play Music, and even follow us on Twitter at Mud Podcast. All the links are in the show notes, so let's go ahead and talk muds. So, this week, we're starting into what I really started the podcast for in the first place, and that's for reviewing muds. Now, what's the point of mud reviews? Well, ideally, it would start driving more traffic towards games that really do deserve it, as well as give muds an idea of what your average player comes in, sees, and decides whether or not they want to stick around and play. Now, when I review muds, I came up with a scoring guide out of 100 points. The first thing that I look for is the website and the mud resources that are outside of the mud. With this, I look at, is the website modern? Is the information on the website up to date? Are the game's help files or help content accessible from the web? And is there any sort of community prominently displayed or seen on the websites like forums, Discord, IRC channels, or anything like that? The next category delves into the game's community. How does the population treat new players? How responsive are other players and administrators? And did I want to keep playing the game based on the experience that I had with other people? Because, well, muds are a social game, and if you don't like the people, you're not going to like the game. Third, I take a look at the mechanics of the game itself. Does it possess anything unique to it? How does the game feel to play? Are the game mechanics newbie friendly? Is there any depth to the mechanics? And are there those little quality of life features that, over the years, I've come to expect from a game that just make your life as a player a lot easier? Finally, we come to the last category that, for some games, may end up being omitted. And this is the story, the setting, and the role playing within the game. And with that, I take a look at, is there a unique story to the game? How well written is the story, and is it followed? And finally, are players on there expected to role play and stay in character? Or is it more of a social game where out of character conversations are the norm? So let's go ahead and dive into Lusternia. So, Lusternia, Age of Ascension. Their website is www.lusternia.com. So, keeping with the score chart, their website does look modern. It wasn't designed in the 90s. In fact, their website looks redesigned since the last time I took a look at it. I do know that the information on the website is up to date. However, their wiki does end up not quite being up to date since it is both player and administrator edited. The game's help files and help content are available from the web, both again on the website where you can find the actual help system, as well as on the wiki, which is again somewhat out of date, somewhat up to date. And then on the website, community is displayed with the link to the forums where you can go on, chat about things in the game, and everything of that variety. Now, as far as the community itself goes, in general, Lusternia treats new players pretty good. Players want new players to stick around, and will typically go out of their way to make sure they're well equipped and answer any questions they might have. However, something you may run into is if one of the factions that you opt to join is empty, there just might not be that much help around. Fortunately, they do have the newbie channel, where you can ask questions that'll be seen by everybody in the game. And again, doesn't matter which side you're on, if you're asking a question on that channel, you're going to get a good answer. Other players and administrators are pretty responsive on the game, in my personal experience. And based on my experience with other people, I would want to log into the game again. Now, digging into mechanics, the game does possess quite a few unique mechanics. They do use the Iron Realms, I believe, prior to that Avalon system of balance, where instead of having your character automatically attack based on a timer, similar to what a lot of mud code bases do, you have balance. When you attack, your balance goes on cooldown, and you can't use attack or anything like that again until it comes off of cooldown. Think of this being similar to using skills in World of Warcraft, unless they're instant cast, even with the global cooldown. you still can't just sit there and spam them. Other unique mechanics the game possesses are Aether ships, where you sail around in Aether space, killing monsters. And then they also possess a system called influencing. Influencing is definitely a departure from your typical MUD experience gaining. Instead of having to run around, kill things, and that may or may not really fit the character that you have in mind, instead, you get to basically talk to them. Using a series of commands, you can attempt to beg money from them, sing their praises to them, and tell them what wonderful people they are, or even make fun of them and cause them to get super paranoid about what other people think. Now, the they and thee and them that I'm talking about are mobs in the game. So, again, it gives you something to do other than just kill whatever it is, well, there is to gain experience from out there. Then we dive into how does the game actually feel to play. In general, I found it to be very responsive. Commands get entered, output gets sent back extremely quickly, and so all in all, I would consider it pretty good on just the play and the feel. As far as being newbie friendly with those mechanics and gameplay, that's where Lusternia kind of falls a little flat on its face. The mobs in Lusternia can give you a bunch of debuffs, which will cause various things to happen to your character, such as bleeding, losing hit points at a fairly regular rate, going blind, where you can't see and can't really interact with the world, going deaf, where, well, again, you can't hear and can't interact with the world. Now, unlike the other Iron Realm entertainment games that are out there, Lusternia does not possess built-in server-side curing out of the box. They do have the first aid command, which can kinda sorta keep you alive, and they also have stuff that'll automatically refill your hit points and your mana, but compared to the other Iron Realm games, they are far, far behind as far as that little bit of newbie assistance, as well as old veteran character assistance go. So definitely gotta dock them points as far as how newbie friendly their mechanics are. As far as depth to the mechanics goes, player versus player combat is where it's at in Lusternia if you're looking for depth. I'm just gonna go with a bunch of different classes, and a lot of them are kind of built the same as one another. There are 6 different kinds of warriors, 4 different kinds of monks, but they all kind of do have their own unique flavor to them that does make facing one fairly different from facing another. As far as the quality of life features go, well, again, they do support GMCP, which allows your client to get information from the game that you don't see, but can be accessed to do all sorts of neat stuff with scripting, triggers, and things like that. Colors are completely configurable for both the output that you get from the game, as well as the various channels within the game. Now finally, we're going to get to the story, the setting, and the roleplay of Lusternia. And this is where I have to say that the folks behind the game really do knock it out of the park. Lots of divine warfare, soulless gods coming to battle the star gods, so-called because they have a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. And it's really something that you do, if you're interested in that sort of thing at all, are going to have to delve into it on the website. I will say that the producer of the game, Astara, did a fantastic job writing the lore for the game. The setting lends itself to conflict between the various factions very easily, giving reasons why a character would be motivated to fight, against another character from somewhere else, or even with someone within your own faction, depending on whether or not it's a very communistic, one for all and all for one, or if it's more of an individualistic style of faction where, hey, as long as you're not stepping on anybody else's toes, go ahead and do what you want. Now, the RP in Lusternia really kind of depends on who you happen to be around and hang out with. I've run into everything from people that just barely manage to not speak out of character whenever they're speaking to you anywhere in the game where they should be in character, all the way up to folks that do such an extremely good job of being in character that you kind of get nervous being around them because you're like, wow, I don't know if I can compare and reflect back just the quality of the roleplay experience that I'm getting. Now, that is something that is going to vary from person to person. Some people love doing what feel like, 6, 7, 8 line long poses that look at it and might take you a minute or 3 to read through. whereas other people manage to convey themselves in a very succinct manner that some people can find off putting because of how brief it is, while others think, hey, that's not so bad. We can get more back and forth in without having to wade through 5 million characters worth of purple prose. So, overall, where does this leave Lusternia? Well, in my opinion, they're a solid B. By my scoring, they scored 84 points out of 100. I'll have a full breakdown of the scores on the website, particularly in the show notes. That way, you can get an idea of, hey, am I willing to overlook a couple of things that Tark decided that he really missed in exchange for some of these other features where, well, I'd really like to play with those. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this week's episode of the Stick in the Mud podcast. If you like the show, I'd love it if you could leave a review for us on iTunes or Google Play. Or hey, if you want to go ahead and just swing on by the website, leave a comment anywhere. Well, I always love feedback. As always, I'd like to say thanks to our sponsor, Opie, over at www.funcity.org, who takes care of the server, hosting, and really just makes it possible for this podcast to happen. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/mudpodcast, and go ahead and feel free to leave anything you want to say there as well. So I'd like to say thanks again for listening, and to all you Listernians out there, have fun slaying Cthulhu.